It has been a little over 2 years since Winter Storm Uri spurred widespread power outages that led to at least 250 deaths across Texas. Now state legislators are introducing bills to try and improve the Texas power grid on the heels of weatherization-related reforms that were made back in 2021. And joining us to talk about what is being proposed is Doug Lewin, president of Austin-based Stoic Energy. Doug, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So we all know one of the big problems during Uri was a lack of clear communication from ERCOT, from the PUC about what was going on. I understand there's a bill under consideration now, HB 1500, that would actually make changes to how those agencies operate and communicate. What would those changes look like?
So 1500 is the sunset bill, and the Sunset Commission did a top-to-bottom review of the agency. It's a pretty expansive bill. It's pretty long, a lot of different sections. But one of the things in there is that the PUC can no longer just give a verbal order to ERCOT to change things, so that pricing at the sort of now infamous $9,000 during Uri that cost customers many billions of dollars, those have to be written out and not just verbal anymore. But there's a lot of other changes in there too. It's a pretty comprehensive bill.
And we should note that immediately after the winter storm, there were some other reforms. We saw a bill called SB 3 that created what's known as an electricity supply chain map. And now I understand there's a new bill that specifies who can actually see that map. So what is the supply chain map, and what does this new bill do essentially?
Well, it puts TxDOT, the Department of Transportation, into that bill so that they can see the electricity supply chain map, which I think is fine. But I've raised concerns that I think it's a little bizarre. I think it's more than a little. I think it's very bizarre that there is not what is typically in other sections of statute where there's a legislative exemption to the confidentiality of the electricity supply chain map. I just think it's just crazy that legislators wouldn't be able to see that map, because the map, what's on the map is what is required to be weatherized. So if it's not on the map, if it's gas supply, it's not going to be weatherized. And the only people who know what is on that map are at the PUC and the Railroad Commission, literally the policymakers that are ultimately responsible for making sure that we don't have any events like Uri ever again. They can't see the map. Even if they were to sign a non-disclosure agreement, legislators are not allowed to see what is required to be winterized. That just strikes me as absurd.
So you feel the sphere of people that can see this map needs to be expanded?
Well, at least to include legislators. I don't understand how you could make policy around a reliable grid without understanding what is required to be reliable. Yeah.
So we saw, as these bills were being introduced this week, ERCOT also met. They, of course, manage the state's power grid. They held a meeting Wednesday and they discussed establishing a new reliability standard in the wake of Uri. So what does that mean? What is a reliability standard? And what are they talking about changing?
So reliability standards used to be pretty straightforward, because for a long time in the electric utility industry, you had really large power plants serving load. It was complicated, but it was fairly straightforward. Things are a lot more complex now for a variety of reasons, one of which is the extreme weather we're experiencing more and more regularly, and another is the proliferation of a lot of distributed energy resources. So the system just looks a lot different than it did. And the old standard is what they called a 1 in 10. If you had one outage in 10 years, then you met the reliability standard. Well, we had an outage in 2011. We had an outage in 2021. By the old standard, we have a reliable system, but that's not acceptable to anybody. So what they're starting to look at is, instead of a one event in 10 years, they're looking at a standard that takes into account things like the frequency, the duration of the outages, and the magnitude, how deep are those outages. So it's going to be very different. And they're going to look at extreme weather. They're going to look at distributed energy resources and how those participate towards reliability. And one last thing that's really important, particularly for Austin viewers, is it's not just about do you have enough supply to meet demand, but what's going on in the distribution system. Because as Austinites learned just last month, you could have enough supply to meet demand, but if your distribution system is down for an extended period of time, the result and the outcome is the same to the customer. So they've got to take those kinds of things into account as well.
A lot of pieces to this puzzle. Doug Lewin, thanks for helping us break it down and for being here. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.